Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily and happy Freaky Friday. That is Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. And Bird was busy on Thursday. He was watching Ohio State's recruiting camp. He doesn't even know that the Big Ten has released their schedule for 2024 and 2025. A flex premium. I don't remember what they exactly decided to call this ludicrous setup, but it's
That sounds like a prescription of some sort.
it kind of is. It is a prescription for excitement in the Big Ten. I don't know if
Morbid.
that's actually true or not. First of all, how was camp, Berm?
Wonderful. The shortened window of time was actually less enjoyable than I thought it'd be. And I actually found myself feeling like I'm not getting a chance to really watch everyone as closely as I normally do, but I guess that's the case. And that's all right. The coaches seem to be happy, and that's all that matters. But no, it was a good day. A couple offers went out. You can read about those at ohiostate.rivals.com and the Horseshoe Lounge and on the front page. And it's fun to watch young guys get a chance to live out their dreams.
Yes, they did that on Thursday. You can use code DTE30 if you want to get all of that coverage for free on us for a month. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. We'll just talk right now about the Big Ten. Pretty significant shift. I'll catch you.
I'm going to cheat before you keep talking. I'm actually going to look right now and see what the hell you're talking about.
You're going to download the information?
Yeah, I'm going to go to ohiostate.rivals.com and look at it and see exactly what the hell you're talking about. But
this is great content.
I have my first thought right off the cuff.
Okay, let's do it.
We have spent a lot of time in the last month or so as we did position previews for Ohio State and where they're going in the future of the position, and talking about how the 2024 season looks like it could be a potentially rough one for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Judging by what I see on this here Big Ten schedule for that year, it looks like it's an easier one for Ohio State. So good job. They needed that help when you're talking about replacing like 24 starters. So I think that actually works out pretty well for the Buckeyes. And whatever else happens from here is kind of gravy, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So the bullet points there. Penn State was not protected as a permanent rival for Ohio State. Now, down the road, they can revisit this. In fact, I bet they will, because one of my top takeaways is that all of this grand unveiling, all of the expansion plans, all of the playoff talk tells me that they're going to have to go to 10 conference games. We can discuss that later, but one of the reasons
I vehemently disagree with that assertion. I think they're going to go to 8.
They're not going to go to 8. You cannot do that and make $7 billion.
As long as the SEC continues to do it, I think
they're not going to continue.
What kind of idea? A shamalama ding dong?
No, I said that was a short-term proposal for them. Eventually, they will go to 9, and I bet that they will also eventually go to 10 when they realize how much they like money.
I hope that they do, because the Big Ten is making this decision to expand to 16 teams and do all this stuff, and however many more they add, because you want to get more teams in the playoff and more teams on national TV winning the national championship. If you're continuing to force Ohio State to play Michigan, Penn State, USC, and Michigan State and all, every year, and then you want them to go out and play a premium non-conference schedule, which I guess ultimately will be probably the thing that gets impacted the most by the 10-game schedule that you're talking about, in conference schedule. You're going to put your programs in jeopardy of being in the playoffs if Ohio State has to. I mean, Michigan in 2024, from what I'm seeing, has to play at Ohio State, at Penn State, and at USC. That's rough.
I think the Big Ten schedule makers were playing a little bit of a joke on what Michigan's done over the last couple of years, and lucky is not. If you schedule nobody in the non-conference, then you're making your own breaks, I suppose. But they've also had some favorable situations in the conference schedule, and they're like, you know what? People thought it was a little suspect what you did the last couple of years, so try this on for size in 2024.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Bottom line, I mean, I think if you look at 2024 home games, this is my issue for Ohio State. It's harder and harder to sell tickets, and when you have Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, and Rutgers coming into town, eek, and that pre-conference
Sounds
schedule
sounds
in
like a case
2024 is.
being made for an extra conference game is what you're making.
Well, I don't know that it is because if you look at the road games, we're going to Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, and UCLA. It's not really that much better. I just think that season altogether is going to be just a real clunker for a lot of reasons. I don't like it. I don't
Yeah.
like it at all.
That road schedule is 2 thumbs down. No,
Yeah,
thank you. I
it
don't
is.
like any part of that. But I did kick this off before we meandered to like 6 different topics that Penn State is not protected, and, I'm curious how you feel about that when you look at the highest stakes games really over the last I mean, since I've been covering Ohio State, let's just say 12 years, there have been more Ohio State Penn State versions than Ohio State Michigan that had national championship implications, Big Ten East implications, Big Ten championship implications, and also a lot more competitive games in certain years. So I I think it sucks that we're going to be losing that, but I also think that it shows you that the Big Ten didn't just purely chase dollars and television eyeballs because the competitive balance and equity of the league would have been pretty dramatically unfair to force Ohio State to play the best two programs every single year.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, as you mentioned, this is probably a short term solution, and all these things will change, and you could potentially see that happening where that's a protected game. Number two, I believe Penn State's tagline is unrivaled, so this is sort of on them. Number three, the reality is the Big Ten is going to want to have three teams in the playoff every year, and you're going to want to find a way to make sure that group includes Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Penn State. So you can't just line them all up and say you guys have to play each other every year. I just think that's bad juju, especially considering what we just said. Like you're going to end up probably having to take some of the oomph out of the pre-conference schedule, and so if you don't have those big wins out, not that anyone really gives a crap about strength of schedule anymore. I mean, none of that stuff matters, but it just seems like you want Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC to rotate around each other, and so you only play two of those teams max per season. And um, I think that's probably smart. It's maybe not great for the fans. Maybe it's not great for the TV dollars, as you said. You maybe lose some of those marquee matchups, but the reality is the real money here is to get your teams into the playoff and have a chance to win. So it sucks. I agree. The Penn State rivalry has become probably, at least in the last decade until the last 2 years, a much better rivalry than the Michigan game. And that one's obviously swung back now, but what you do with Penn State is probably find a way to. I don't know because if the argument then would be that Michigan should play Ohio State and Penn State every year too, because is Michigan State just have to be their rival because they're 40 miles away, even though they stink and it's not really. I don't know. I can
Well,
see the argument, but I don't because your point is correct. Like Ohio State's natural rivals would be Michigan and Penn State, and that's a huge disadvantage for the Buckeyes.
yeah, especially because if you had done this, and I will give the Big Ten credit, and I will say this far exceeded what I thought they would do in terms of competence. I expected the worst. The fact that they looked at every option and picked something that is definitely not the worst option on the table, I would have to take my hat off and salute that. Um, I guess years and years of lowering my expectations for them has paid off with them finally surpassing it. So kudos. I think that if you had said that everyone has to have two, and then you gave Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, by process of elimination, at some point somebody's going to wind up with like Maryland and Rutgers, or
Yeah.
Indiana and Purdue, or Northwestern, and Ohio State couldn't sit there and say we're the ones making all this money for the league, and we have to go run this gauntlet. We carry the flag, we make the money, we're in the college football playoff, we're in a New Year's Six game every year for a decade, and now you're going to put that at risk for what? So that you can make more money on the regular season and make the path to which is another problem that I have with 9, not just the 5 home games and 4 road games alternating every year, but you have 16 teams and you're trying to crown a conference champion. You have an imbalance just on how many games you play at home, and you're also not playing. You're barely getting to half of the league, so you need to make the biggest sample size that you possibly can. I understand why maybe they didn't want to jump right into that and be the first to 10. That's cool. I think at some point that's inevitable, especially when you look at the television deals. But you, if you were going to do some sort of favor and help Ohio State for everything else that they've sacrificed for the Big Ten and the good of the league, you can't just say your schedule is going to be murderer's row in the best of the league every single year. You cannot do it.
No, and certainly, I mean, I could see a case in the future where you're talking 11 conference games just to make it an unbalanced and uneven number. And that's called an odd number for those of you out there trying to figure out words.
This isn't a math
Because
show.
as you said, like eventually, college football is in a metamorphosis, and it's not anywhere near complete. We're going to end up like what we thought for a long time with the mega conferences, 2 or 3 or 4 mega 20-team conferences, and then the rest of the currently constructed Division 1 FBS is just going to fade away and become its own division anyway. So the Big 10, you'll have to play 11 teams in your of your 20, or 10 teams out of your 20 team league, and then you get a conference championship game, because I didn't read all the way through this, but like I assume you're scrapping divisions and then you're just still picking the top 2 to play in the conference championship game a week after the regular season ends. It just seems like they know it's not a completed puzzle, and so they're just taking little steps along the way to what will eventually be like an NFL schedule.
Yeah. The debates and then I'm gonna assume, I'm gonna make a big assumption here. When you have tiebreakers and then you're gonna defer then to the college football playoff selection committee for their rankings to pick if you have like opponents because you're playing 9 games and not the maximum amount against the league. There's gonna be, whether next year or in 2025, I know it, a ridiculous tiebreaker that is purely because of the Big Ten design here. That you're
Mhm.
gonna say, who's gonna be the team in here to go play the number 1 in the league? Well, let's vote. Maybe they'll empower the people who cover this league to vote on who gets in. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's going
I
to be
bet they
something where
don't.
I bet they don't. Yeah, you're probably definitely correct about that. But there's going to be an issue with that. That's why I think you have to make that adjustment to 10 or 11 or 12. Because guess what? Why do you even need any non-conference games anymore? You have 16 teams in the league. There's a very good probability that there will be more Pac-12 teams targeted for a round of expansion when either the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the ACC all implode and fall apart. Like, this part's
Yeah.
not even done, so we're getting worked up, or I'm getting worked up about a lot of these details, and probably by 2026 there'll be something completely different for the schedule anyway. But eliminating divisions for me was long overdue. Um, I think from the moment that the Big Ten separated out and went with legends and leaders, you knew that they had no idea what they were doing. It was just laughable from the start. It They skated by for about a decade without any major issues, and then they got burned by what happened with Purdue and Iowa the last couple of years.
I look at this schedule and you think about and look at this conference, and as you mentioned, there's 2 teams on the West Coast. You do expect at some point there's going to be others. I don't foresee a future for the Big Ten where they at least don't try to like move to the East Coast even further in North Carolina or Duke or something like that. I mean, I don't know all the things that they're required to get a school in, but if you're a program like Miami, for example, are you not begging to get the hell out of the ACC? I mean, we know there's already been at least some preliminary conversations about Clemson and the SEC, and like if you're Miami or North Carolina, do you not want to get the heck out of that league before it implodes? All of these things are just moving parts, and I looking at my personal thought is that like I'm going to eat so many Strombolis this October in Piscataway because we're not going to be back there till at least 2026. There's a good chance I'm dead by then. So
That might not even be how it works out, because
I know
if
it
you
could
look
be
at this,
later than that.
no, well, they say within every 4-year stretch, you will play at every stadium in the Big Ten. That's the way
Mm,
that they structured this with this plan. So it won't be that long. And one of the tweaks that I didn't even really write about in here, like Ohio State's now going to have to go to Wisconsin twice in a row. So
mm.
they're playing at Wisconsin this year. They don't play them next year, right? Then they play them uh, in Madison again in 2025. I believe that I'm correct in that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so then so you're talking
Same
2027
with
till
Purdue.
Wisconsin comes back? Like, that's pretty wild.
That's the same with Purdue. So yeah, I mean, that's the Big Ten just constantly throwing Ohio State into the fire.
Yeah. Anyway,
Luke
um,
Fickle will Luke Fickle still be the head coach at Wisconsin the next time Ohio State plays at Wisconsin in the year 2025?
oh, wow. They didn't want Luke Fickell to come back to Columbus? This was all for him?
Think about it.
Wow.
Probably part of his deal.
That's deep.
Yep.
Um, I was I would have wagered a lot of units, Berm, that Ohio State was going to have to play at USC next year. And then I would have lost that bet, and then I would have lost the next one, which is that they're not even gonna play at all in year 1.
Do you think that's because Ohio State said we're playing Texas next year? Don't be jerks, or like don't do that. We don't want to have to play Penn State and Michigan and Texas and USC. Do you think that's what it was about?
Maybe.
I bet that's probably part of it, because
I don't
again,
I don't think they wanted to go play in an empty Rose Bowl.
I mean, why not? It's the easiest place to play. It's like practice.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so Ohio State still does have to get its trip out to California. How little are you looking forward to that as a regular season game?
I guess um, I'd rather go to UCLA first than to USC first, given the choice. I like the Rose Bowl setting a little bit more than the Coliseum setting, so I'm cool with that. I think that it's fun for Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, presumably, to get a chance to go heads up against each other, mentor versus mentee. I'm always a big fan of the teacher and the student fighting, and the
Mm,
student becoming the master, and
of
then
course.
cutting off the hand and then throwing him over the edge of the Rose Bowl, and then
Well,
taking his rightful place at the right hand side of the emperor, and then deciding to throw the emperor over. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. Um,
all
but
that's gonna happen?
how can it not? It's LA, baby. It's Hollywood, dog. That's what we
Uh,
do. No,
Pasadena is really not Hollywood.
no, that's setting up, though. Honestly, you have potentially Dante Moore, the five-star quarterback, who, he's likely to be the starter there by then. Like, it could be a good UCLA team. Ohio State and UCLA have played a couple bangers in my lifetime back in the early 2000s. So I actually think that UCLA is a great add to Ohio State. I just think Pasadena, as far as the game experience when you're in the stadium, is pretty awesome, and I think fans will love that. I think that, like, if I was recommending to fans like which California game to make your first trip, I'd probably pick UCLA. Wouldn't you?
No way. Not a chance.
Really? I don't want to be downtown. I don't want to be anywhere near downtown if I'm
Yeah, I
going
mean,
out to California.
I understand that for sure, but, like, UCLA fans don't go to games at the Rose Bowl. So it's not like the experience where we've had where we've covered the Rose Bowl and it's full and people are excited and, "Ooh, here comes the
Yeah,
sunset over the San Gabriel." Like, you're
but
maybe
Buckeyes
Cox will
fans
put
will be there.
yeah, but then the rest will be empty. It'll be a half full stadium. I know it.
There's a lot of West Coast Buckeyes. I'm telling you, what's actually going to be funny about that is watching as USC and UCLA get used to the idea that people are traveling out to their city to watch their, opponents, because Ohio State fans will go out there en masse. And I'm wondering, from a like game day logistics standpoint, like, how ready are those programs for Ohio State fans or Michigan fans or Penn State fans that travel like crazy? So I'm actually more interested to see how those teams prepare than what Ohio State fans do, because they're going to be like, "What the hell are all these people doing here? This is ruining a perfectly good Saturday for me. I was walking the dog. I stopped in to watch a little bit of football, and now I'm going to go to brunch." And people are going to like, "Now you can't get out to brunch because the stadium actually has people in it."
That's why I'm just dumbfounded that you are saying go to UCLA and that you think that that's gonna be a worthwhile experience. No longer will we even have a police escort and shuttle to get to the stadium. So now you, behind the wheel of a rental car, will be yelling expletives and getting lost and turning the wrong direction 10 times
Huh.
because we've never had to do that. You're winding through like a neighborhood, as you said, with
Yep.
people walking the dog, and they're gonna be like, "What
Yep.
the hell's going on? There's a football game today? Oh, does that mean the golf course is closed?
Well, yeah, let's hope
what
that that's the first 9 a.m. West Coast game, so that way we can get there at 6 a.m. before traffic starts in LA, 6 a.m. on Saturday. But I don't know. I don't
that
think it's going to be that bad. I actually really, I think that the worst part about that is just that travel to get there is such a pain in the butt when you're
Mhm,
and so expensive. But um, the point is, TV is what this is all about. So
it
they
is,
don't
yeah,
care if people are there to watch it in person because they want people's watching it at home. Um, we will still be there in person, and I hope
yeah.
other Buckeyes fans make the trip so that they can commiserate with us about it. That's what's important to me is
Mm,
commiseration.
yeah, that would be nice.
Let's see. No Indiana again until 2025.
What a
Uh,
shame.
and then not again. Who knows, man? I don't know. The road schedule. We've got Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, UCLA. That's a doozy.
Look at that.
So
Going to East
not.
Lansing, the worst. Flying to Minneapolis. I do like going to games there, but is that the,
I'll,
like, highlight of it? I mean,
I'll
yeesh.
I'll I will reserve my judgment about whether or not I like going to Minnesota for games if it was like the last one where it was September.
Yeah.
If it was like the
The
one in 2014 when it was November, no. So
yeah.
that's a big old fat 2 thumbs down.
Oh,
Um,
just for clarity, the Big Ten is saving that release of the scheduled dates until the fall.
yeah, I don't like
Why?
that.
I don't know. I don't
Just
know.
just trickling out terrible ideas, terrible news. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. I think that from a big picture perspective, the league really doesn't have a lot of choices but to just say this is what we're going to do and hope you guys like it. Don't complain too much. Like Michigan, as you said, like they've had a really fairly easy conference slate the last couple of years. The way that it's shook out, and they haven't had any real non-conference stuff that they've been doing that of note. I think they actually play Texas next year, and Ohio State plays Ohio State play Alabama next year or Texas next year.
Uh, they do not play Alabama till, like, 2028.
So does Michigan play
The
Texas next year as well?
uh, mm, Ohio State doesn't play Texas until 2025.
So who's the non-conference 2024?
There is no big non-conference game next year. The
Awesome.
3 games are Southern Mississippi,
Awful.
Western Michigan, and Marshall. As you may recall, Washington was supposed to be the
Mm.
premier non-conference game, and they went and got rid of it.
What if that's all because Washington will be in the conference by the time that actually happens?
10 conference games. Let's go,
I
baby.
don't see why you wouldn't just ask them. You give them one shot. You say, listen here, Washington, if you want in
Mhm.
this conference, this is what you have to do. You have to kill the prime minister. And then if they do it, then you just say, come on in. You've earned it, big
Yeah.
guy. You did it. So proud of you. Um, I don't know.
Which
In
prime
general,
minister?
I wasn't going to be specific because I didn't want it to come across as a direct threat.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't really have one. I don't even know that there's other than the UK and Canada. Who else still uses a prime minister these days?
I literally have no idea how long that list is.
Yeah, that's what Freaky Friday's about, folks. Get out there and Google. Get out there and Google.
Somebody let us know. Hit us up.
Hit us up in the comments below. How many prime ministers are there?
And your favorite prime minister, and then bonus points, which one should Washington murder?
Archduke Ferdinand.
I
Um,
think he's already dead.
Also, I think he's an archduke, not a prime minister. Unless his first name was Archduke, which would make a lot of sense. I could get behind that. The one thing that I'm worried about for the Ohio State Michigan game, obviously that one will never come off the schedule. UCLA, USC, those things you understand. Do you think that the league and Gene Smith came out this week saying that he, after this season's November 11th tussle with Illinois or whoever they're playing, Michigan State,
Mhm.
that they won't do any night games in the conference after the first weekend of November, which is the way that it has been traditionally. So the first weekend in November was okay, kosher. After that, no go. Do you think that the league and the TV partners will stay on that path, or do you think that they will make exceptions, like say if Ohio State's playing USC in November, then it's different?
Well, the tolerances are not going to be the same for everybody. Um, I think that is Ohio State specific. I think that we know for sure that Penn State has the same resistance because they're in a remote location, weather concerns, all those other things that I talked about a couple months ago. Uh, it and even now, it's not necessarily just a Big Ten blanket rule. Um, there are some exceptions that can be made. So, like USC is capable of hosting a November night game. UCLA is capable of doing so. Um, I don't know all the specific tolerances for everyone else across the league, um, but I don't expect Ohio State's approach to that when it comes to playing at home to change. It's I know people hate hearing this. Like, it's not winterized. You have to have people working until midnight in potentially very cold weather. It's dangerous, or can be dangerous. They don't want to take any of those risks. You could say, well, what if they flex and they can look at a 7-day forecast like that? They're not going to. That's just not going to happen. I know the
Not
NFL
yet.
does it. Yeah, like Green Bay does it, and everyone survives. The fans survive. It's not the most metropolitan area, and that's fine. Like it's a fair counterpoint to make and a counter argument to make. I don't I don't know any other way to just say that's not the way Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan approach it, and they can all get 100,000 people into their stadium, and that's what does Green Bay hold now? Like 70,000? Like,
Yeah.
even from that perspective, you're adding 30,000 more people plus
That's
the
warmth.
well, yeah, it definitely is that. But also you have to have you know, a larger support staff around that for the extra 100,000 for the people that are not actually in the stadium. So there will be
Not
those
yeah.
because you see, especially if you add what we're talking about, like if the expansion is not done and you have other people on the West Coast, then you have an opportunity to do that. USC and UCLA are not going to play 9 a.m. games. Like,
Yeah, unfortunately. Now that the TV partners are just like NBC and Fox, why don't they have some sort of tabulation opportunity to go to the fans directly and say, "Hey, fans, this week, do you want to see Illinois in prime time?" And fans can vote yes, vote no, and everyone will of course say no, and so then you just don't have to worry about it. You know,
and if the answer is yes, then guess what? It's going to be streaming on the cock.
I like the idea of Illinois changing their tagline to "We play 9 a.m. football." You know, but like we play it at 11 a.m., but we play in the style of 9 a.m. we play 9 a.m. style here in Champaign.
Anytime, anywhere, the earlier, the better.
that 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 would be the best new way for Illinois to just dive in. Illinois or Northwestern, either one, I'm fine with them adopting this mantra. How early do you want to play? We'll see you
I
at 7 a.m.
We've seen Pat Fitzgerald get really weird with their pre-games before. I think he would be in favor of playing at 6 a.m.
I do not doubt it at all. Last November in Champaign or in Evanston was the weirdest game I've ever covered.
It sure was.
Honestly, it
Weirdest and dumbest.
it was the weirdest day ever, and I didn't like it. What else? Is there anything else about this schedule that is up in the air still?
Ohio State needs a third 2025 non-conference opponent, so that part is not done.
So that's Texas and whom?
Good question, Berm. It is Texas and UConn, the
Ooh.
mighty Huskies. So they were the Washington series was slated for 2024 and 2025. So that is a vacancy that must still be filled.
I just wonder, and this is really, I'm going to go back to my point earlier. The non-conference games, the pre-conference games, as I like to call it, like how much do you feel like those are going to eventually end up suffering or being wiped away from being marquee matchups because you
Mhm.
simply can't afford to risk another loss if you're Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State when you have to win then every game against Penn State, Michigan, USC, UCLA. Like,
Yeah, Bill asked me about that same thing, and we were talking more about the broadcast deal and the likelihood of that with sort of the warring factions again the arms race with the SEC and the Big Ten. And like, if I thought that the Alabama games, the Georgia games, if those were at risk, and I would say that I very much think that they are. I think when you look, and this is unfortunate, and I'm not saying that I like to do it this way in any stretch of the imagination, but if you're talking about $7 billion broadcast deals, and you're viewing this from the lens of inventory and conference ownership and all of those things,
Yeah.
that's the stuff that's going to go. I really believe that, and I hope that I'm wrong. There's nothing better than these marquee non-conference matchups. Ohio State, Alabama should play more frequently, but I think the exchange will be we're more likely to see them in an expanded playoff, and you don't have to necessarily worry about scheduling them in September. I know that there are a lot of coaches who don't like that part anyway. Like if that's your week one and you have to be ready to go, like a top 5 matchup, like that's not ideal for in the minds of most coaches. It's great for fans, it's cool for excitement, and it's definitely valuable if you win. But they come in inherent in that is a lot of risk, and I think that the financial implications are eventually going to trump that. And then, you'll see them still play in the playoffs, but I think that these will get hacked up. And I do think that that's another push towards what I expect will eventually happen and what I think should happen, which is at least 10 conference games.
Yeah. I just think that unfortunately, all of these things are occurring in a way that is framed around how much money can the conferences make. And
Mhm.
I get it. It's a business. I just hate that for the fans' sake, they lose the charm of what college football was. The idea of Ohio State and Alabama or Ohio State and Georgia playing in the playoffs is awesome. The idea of being a fan growing up in Columbus, getting to take your son to Tuscaloosa and watch Ohio State and Alabama in Alabama, or bringing your kid from Georgia up to Columbus and seeing Ohio Stadium. Like, I think that the game is going to lose some of the charms that have
Mhm.
always made it so that have made people so passionate about it. And I mean, there's a lot of joking around on this show. It is Freaky Friday. That's the way we do things here. But like, there is a significant blow being dealt to like the nostalgia and like the heart of college football when everything now being viewed through the lens of, well, how much money can we make? I mean,
Yeah.
how is this affecting the bottom line? Even on Thursday at the Ohio State camp, getting there early, talking to some people in operations and stuff around the like, man, I don't know why we even do these camps anymore. We should just, set up regional tryouts for colleges and have like mass tryouts for every school in this area for once a week in June, and let kids all come to one spot. It's stupid to do it this way.
Mhm.
There's just a soul of the sport that feels like it's being removed a little bit, and that hurts, because like
Yeah.
for most of us in the Midwest, and you growing up in Oklahoma and Wyoming, like college football is so much more than just a sport. And when everything is viewed through how much money can it make, which I'm fine with. I like money. I'd like to have more. That's where you come in.
Mhm.
Um, but like how much, when does it become enough? When is enough enough?
Yeah. Yeah, at the risk of like starting another half-hour conversation, which we really don't need to do, I think that like it's sort of a misunderstanding of college football's popularity. The pageantry and the tradition and the rivalries and all these things are what made it so great, and the reason that why we've loved it, since you and I both have since we were old enough to remember. Like some of our formative memories were definitely going to college football games, both of us. So um, to try and monetize that and then gear the product towards more monetization and broadcasting, like, sort of sacrifices the soul, as you said, and that part does suck. And I wonder how sustainable it will be. I mean, the Big Ten is going to be completely unrecognizable. Like
Yeah, but
the
it's gonna look awesome on those Apple goggles when I can buy them in 2 years. And I'm gonna be
I
on the sideline shooting
no.
photos through my Apple goggles, watching 3 other games at once in my head. Oh my god, that is
And
gonna be wild.
and somehow you'll still be able to go on Snappy J's afterwards and tell me everything that I missed from the press box, which
Yeah,
is
but I'm gonna get to see replays in my eyeballs. Although I really do hope they find a way to make those things smaller by the time that they come around. That prototype's a little large. If you're
Yeah, I
going to
thought they were
expect
just
me,
supposed to be glasses. Like,
yeah, if you're going to expect someone to pay 3,500 bones, 35 hundo bones to wear like your phone on your face, essentially, that's what that's becoming, to wear your
uh-huh.
phone or your computer on your face. They need to be a bit more fashion forward, don't you think?
Well, I think the reason that you wear a phone on your face is because you don't care what real humans think about you.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen people wear like ski goggles as a fashion accessory, but I don't think that on a day-to-day basis you're going to see people walking down the street wearing them or eh, they're I know this is the first like iteration of these things. I don't even know what they're called. The Apple
I don't know
eye
how to
goggles.
work the body.
I don't know what's going on with it, but you can do so many things on your phone.
Yeah.
Games, of course, medieval games, obviously,
So many
jousting
games,
games, of
so many
course.
apps.
But like, what are you going to do when I think about that though? Like, when those things get small enough for people to wear them, I will be able to shoot photos at a game and watch another game in my eyeball, which
Frankly, I'm surprised you haven't already figured out a way to do that.
well, the reality is that Wi-Fi is not good enough in most stadiums on the field to allow it. So
Oh, well,
I've tried
shoot.
before. I generally want to do it just so I can actually see some replay stuff that's happening on the field during the Ohio State games. But I don't know. $3,500 seems like a lot for a pair of virtual reality goggles or augmented reality goggles. Um, but that's just what Apple does, I guess, right? Like every company has those home speakers, the little Google Chrome or Google Home Minis, or and Apple's is like $60 more than everyone else. And I don't know why.
Well, I can
That's the
promise you, I will not be wearing a phone on my face.
I can promise
Especially,
you I will. But the home speakers are the one part of the ecosystem I never, bought into as far as Apple goes, but who
I
knows?
frankly can't believe that because you have every gadget in the entire world.
I know, and I have a Google Home Mini, the little speaker in every room in the house, but I didn't want to spend $100 per speaker when I could buy the Google Homes for like 19 bucks.
Great point.
Everything else
Well,
is automated, so you gotta, you find a way to bring it all together.
as you can tell, this was a conversation about Big Ten schedules all the way through. No shenanigans, no nonsense. None of
Straight
that
to the
sort at
point.
all. Yes, just straight to it. Thanks for letting us meander a bit here at the end. I know you've probably been waiting for us to wrap it up for about 15 minutes, but if you made it to here, congratulations and thank you for watching. We hope you had a great week and you have an even better weekend. For Berm, I'm Austin. This has been Freaky Friday on the Podcast Daily, and we'll see you on Monday.